Hey there, it's Jason. It's mid-June 2023, and there's a lot happening in the orchard. We have a lot of fruit that's ripening up and a lot of changes that are taking place, so come along, let's go take a look. All right, project number one here in the orchard is to take my single irrigation zone and break it up into 8, 9, 10 different zones. I have 8 sprinkler controllers over here. I have another 4 outside of the fence, and combined I'm going to be able to really hone in on what's being watered and when and to what quantity. So just an example of what I've done so far, I've taken my lychee right here and my 3 mangoes that I have that are all within the frame right now, and I put them on their own zone. Before I was hand watering them because they were new additions and they were not connected to the single zone irrigation, and now they're on their own dedicated zone. So that's good. I get to water those. That has a different water requirement than, let's say, my deciduous trees or citrus trees, so I'll be able to work on that. I will be digging trenches through the center here so that I can bring my irrigation all the way to the very far end of the orchard, and then I'll be branching off of that main trench when I go and irrigate my different trees. So let's go take a lap around and let's go see. First off, let's stop and look at these mangoes. I picked these up from Home Depot. They're Manila mango seedlings, and all the new leaves are red, so you can see it's putting on quite a bit of growth. This guy over here, not as full, but still getting plenty of growth. And the idea here is to let these grow in the ground for a year and then graft on a more desired variety. These being seedlings, they won't fruit for another, let's say, 5 or 6, 7 years maybe. So I will want fruit before that, and I'll want different varieties. So I'll let some branches grow out and then graft onto those. My dragon fruit, they're growing. They're not fruiting yet. And in fact, dragon fruit growers all over San Diego are complaining that none of their dragon fruit have flowered yet. And I guess that is due to the really gloomy weather that we've been having. In fact, here in San Diego, in the month of May, it was the cloudiest place in the entire United States. And San Diego's known for its sunny weather, so that's the exact opposite of what you'd expect. But I have 3 dragon fruit pots, and they're all in various stages of growth. So these 2 pots here that I'm looking at, I planted last year. This one experienced a lot of rust over the winter due to all the rain, so I cut it back and it's basically restarting. And then this is my new pot this year. You can tell by the lighter colored wood there that it hasn't weathered as much. But I have a number of different varieties, and this guy right here is putting on tons of growth up top. I'm gonna have to go ahead and fertilize that because it's pushing out so many branches that it really needs a nice rich nitrogen based fertilizer. As we come along here, some of my newer plantings are doing very well. This is my black sapote. Hasn't really grown much yet, but there is a lot of new growth on there. That's looking good. And then I have my 2 persimmon trees. Now, at the beginning of the season, I lost one of my persimmon grafts. It did not take. So luckily, I had cut that scion wood that I ordered in half, and I took the other half that I had saved in the refrigerator, and I grafted it on about 2.5 months after I realized my initial graft had failed. And that second graft caught. It has taken hold, and I've got quite a bit of growth here. But as a result, this tree is really, really lopsided. You can see all the weight on the right-hand side of this shot. So for the first year or two, I'm going to have to stake this and support those branches on the right so that they don't become too top-heavy and so that it doesn't pull the entire tree over to the right. That's okay. That's easy to work with. My second grafted persimmon tree is over here. These branches in the foreground, these 2 that are shooting up, are another graft. This graft pollinizes the graft that I put on over here. I have a chocolate and a coffee cake variety on there. So those are doing very well. And then next to that, I have my peach tree. I've got 4 different varieties on here. I've gone through and harvested 3 of the 4. The one that's remaining, which just happens to be the one that is the least vigorous, so I don't have a whole lot to show here, is Mid-Pride. Mid-Pride is going to span the gap between my early ripening peaches and my midsummer peaches. And by the looks of it, I have maybe a dozen peaches on this tree, but all the rest of the tree here has already flowered, fruited, and I've picked everything off that was available to pick. So this tree is almost done for the season. The next peach tree that I'm going to be harvesting, with the exception of mid-pride, are my donut or Stark Saturn peaches. There are quite a few peaches here. I've actually netted the tree because I had some birds nibbling away from above on my prior peach tree. So I went ahead and I netted it. Couldn't cover the entire tree with the net that I got, so I did my best, but these guys will be ready within the next couple weeks. They are looking really, really good. So as we continue down here, my apricot tree is nestled here in the center. It's kind of hard to tell where one tree begins and another one ends, but I went ahead and harvested all the apricots off of here, and that's with the exception of one of my grafts that is a Blenheim or a royal apricot, and you'll see that there's a few pieces of fruit. Now, Blenheim will ripen up a few weeks to a month after this gold KIST, which is what it's grafted to. So I have 1, 2, 3 apricots on here that are still greenish, but it will be nice to try those out. This will be the first year that my Blenheim graft has fruited, because it did not last year. As I cycle around, I'm going to do a quick peek at my cherry plum. This was a I grafted this about 1.5 years ago, and I had a second tree that was the complementary cherry plum, the pollinizer, Sprite, and I lost that one. It did not take. And so now I'm letting this rootstock grow out right here, and that is going to permit my tree to be a 2-in-1, and they will pollinize one another. So that's in the works. As I come through here, squeeze through, this is really exciting. This is, I think, Double Delight. This is one of my apriums that I've been slowly picking off, and they are so delicious. I can't wait to do a further review on them, but these are beautiful looking and they taste amazing. Behind Double Delight, if I can get over there, pulling all the branches aside, I have a cotton candy aprium, and these cotton candy apriums, they are a little bit further behind. They are not quite ready yet to be harvested, but that's going to be great for me because Double Delight's going to ripen up first, and then second will be cotton candy. That way I can spread out the harvest over the season rather than getting a ton of apriums all at once. My jujubes are flowering profusely here. I've got 3 jujube trees, and they are now nice and green, and they are growing like weeds. These things just absolutely love this San Diego climate, this dry, hot climate. Over here on this side, I've got 1, 2, 3 fig trees and a 4th one that I just planted recently that was one that I propagated. I actually propagated all 4 of these, but this is the most recent one that I propagated. That's the panache, or the tiger fig. And that one is going to need some time to grow, but these guys I propagated last year, and look how much growth they put on. So in a year's time, that thing is going to grow and blend in with the rest of this little fig forest I got going. I have some PLUOTs that are shaping up nicely. This is an emerald drop. It has a nice plump shape to it. These will be ready first, and they'll continue to grow in size, but they'll be green when they're harvested, so I won't get a telltale purple or reddish color that tells me that they're ripe. So I'm going to have to be really careful when harvesting those to make sure that I get them when they're ripe. So that's going to be a new trial for me this year. Next to it, I have Flavor Grenade. You'll notice Flavor Grenade's shape is a little different, more oblong in shape, and those will take on a reddish purplish color. Back behind, I have my sorry, blanking on the name here for a second. I have my Santa Rosa. Sorry, the Santa Rosa, the weeping Santa Rosa. There is some fruit here. This is the year that I trained it to grow along the fence. I'm going to have to come in and trim off all the branches that I don't want that are growing away from the fence. And then one thing that I may reconsider at the end of this season is the placement here of this. I believe it's a Flavor Supreme. Why am I blanking on that? I'm sorry. Flavor King is this PLUOT, and these guys are a little further behind. They'll be the last PLUOT to ripen up. You'll notice that they're the smallest of the 4 plums or PLUOTs that I have, and the reason why I'm talking about placement here is because I recently moved my Santa Rosa to the fence so that I can espaliate along the fence, and in doing so now it's a little too close to my Flavor King, so my Flavor King might get dug up and moved during the dormant season. But right now I'm letting it grow nice and tall because there's really no room for it to go out to the sides. I had initially wanted to train it towards where my Santa Rosa is, but now the Santa Rosa is there. So, whoops, made a mistake, but hey, I can correct it. Let's come on out and look at the apples. So I have a King David here, and that's the first year the King David's been in the ground. So I'm just letting it do its thing, and I'll come in and shape it up and trim it up and train it as the season progresses. This Anna apple is unbelievable. This is the apple that I've been following this entire time. I'm going to hold on to it so that you can get a sense of scale. Now, I really thought that growing apples in the backyard would result in, you know, apples maybe about this size. Decent sized, but not larger than my entire hand and palm. And yet, this Anna is really proving me wrong, or at least dispelling some misconceptions that I had. The apples are gigantic. They're not ready to harvest yet, but they are starting to take on that reddish blush that you look for that indicates that they're ready to harvest. The harvest chart says that these Annas will be ready at the end of June. I think we're on track for that. Quite possibly end of June, beginning of July. Over here I have Winter Banana. Winter Banana has one apple on it. I need to do a little bit more research on Winter Banana. I think maybe it might not be the right tree for this espalier technique. I'm gonna have to learn more about that and get back to you on that. My cherry trees are doing fantastic. No cherries this year, but they're putting on tons of growth, and that's great. And now as I come down here, I'm passing by some of my avocado trees that have recently flowered and put on new leaves. This particular avocado, which I don't know the variety of, this was here when we arrived and there was no documentation. The new leaves are reddish in color, so you can see some of those leaves are relatively new, and there are some little baby avocados on there. Similarly over here, this tree flowered as well. The canopy has not fully recovered yet. It dropped most of its leaves, and now many of these leaves are brand new, but you can see here we do have some little baby avocados that are on the tree in various stages of their development. And let's see, what else do we have? We have some citrus that's just exploding over here. This is a Bear's Lime. It was nice when I first moved in. This thing was sitting on the ground and it was in pretty bad shape. It had a really bad aphid infestation. So I cleaned it up. I used some Tanglefoot on the trunk. I cleaned up the bottom so it no longer touches the ground. And look at all that new growth. Look at the color contrast between the dark green and the light green. The majority of that tree is light green leaves. So I'm doing something right there. And then similarly here, this is my Tango. This guy has suffered in the ground for way too long. And it just seemed to not like anything I was doing to it, whether it be water or fertilizer. And now this is the most amount of growth I've seen. This tree actually came with me from my prior house. So I've had this tree for over 3 years. It was in a pot, and I put it in the ground here. And now this is the first year it's really starting to take off. I have that variegated pink lemonade. This thing is so frustrating. I love the tree, I love the way it looks, but it just does not want to keep its leaves or its fruit. Maybe I can do some experimenting, but that tree is kind of what the Tango was doing to me about a year ago. So maybe this variegated pink lemonade tree will rebound. All right, as I swing around, I have a few more deciduous trees. I was so pleasantly surprised by the Arctic Star nectarine. I actually harvested all the fruit off of this nectarine. It was netted, that's why the leaves are drooping down like this. It'll perk back up as the season goes on. And I harvested about 30 nectarines, and man, they are so good. We have a few left inside, and I don't want to eat them. I want to savor them and keep them, but I know all good things must come to an end. And now here's my other nectarine tree. This one I've netted, and you can see the nectarines are coming along. They don't have that beautiful red Arctic Star color to them, but I hope that they are equally delicious. We will find out. And then I'm saving the best for last. The best for me, at least, is the Spice Zee Nectaplum. And I've netted half the tree. The other half didn't fit under the net, so I'll probably get a second net and cover this side up too. But the handful of nectarines that I got off of this tree, Nectaplum, sorry that I got off this tree last year, I was so impressed, and I'm so excited to get more off the tree this year. You can see they're coming along nicely. Last year, I took my first Nectaplum off the tree in mid-June, but because of our wacky winter weather. Everything in my orchard is about 2 weeks, sometimes even 3 weeks behind schedule as compared to last year. So I'm going to wait closer to the end of June before I start picking any of these nectaplums off. But based on the size, based on the tree vigor and the condition that it's in, I'm expecting great things. This is one of my favorite fruits, and if I was to plant one more of the same type that I already have in my orchard, it would be a second nectarplum tree. I love these things, and so I'd recommend them undoubtedly if you're looking for a fruit tree and something different that you wouldn't normally find in the fruit store. So nectarplums, you'll see I got some of them here in the net that are being protected by the birds. Half of the nectarplums are just out in the open, so if I lose a few, that's okay. I've got possibly 40 nectarplums on there, and so it's going to be exciting once I start pulling those off. All right, so that was a quick update of the orchard. You'll see there's a lot of fruit that's just about ready to be harvested, and there are quite a few trees that are just now flowering. The jujubes, for instance, that will provide fruit for me in the later part of the summer and early fall. Persimmons being others that have just recently fruited, and the fruit is just starting to develop. But for now, I've got my eyes on the next two. I got my donut peach over there, and I have my Spice Zee Nectaplum. These are next up to be harvested, and I'll be sure to update you on when that happens.